The government of India is expected to borrow 5,90,000 crore rupees in the coming financial year, and nearly half this amount goes into providing subsidies, entitlements of food, fuel and fertilizers for economically weaker sections. But a host of issues persist around subsidies in India. For Sunita Dubey, life has come to mean little more than a continuous struggle to make ends meet. 6 children to support besides her aging mother is an uphill ask at every step. The family shifted to a low-income neighborhood in Ghaziabad in the National Capital Region 2 years ago from Sultanpur in Uttar Pradesh. With the move forced by a family dispute, help in the form of food and fuel from the fair price shop also dried up.
मुझको बहुत महंगा पड़ रहा है, बस वही उतना है कि हम खाली अपने बच्चे को पाल रही हूँ बस, और हमको यहाँ कुछ मिल नहीं रहा है, जो कमा रही हूँ वही खिला रही हूँ.
Life has turned turtle since they shifted. In Sultanpur, Sunita had access to a number of subsidies meant for the low-income group. 25 kilograms of rice, 10 kgs of wheat, 3 kilograms of sugar and a kilogram of pulses for 110 rupees. In addition, she could buy 3 liters of kerosene for less than 15 rupees per litre. Then there was the advantage of using wood and homemade dried cow dung as fuel. Here there's no option but to buy high-cost LPG gas and more.
कम से कम 2 बार भरवाती हूँ 4 लीटर, और 1000 रुपया तो लग ही जाता है हमारा.
It doesn't end with the high cost of fuel. Sunita and her eldest daughter, who's 19, work as domestic helps. The girl had to discontinue studies to supplement the family income. Together they bring home some 10,000 rupees a month, and there are 8 mouths to feed and massive responsibilities ahead: house rent, school fees, besides the continuously growing expenses on very basic groceries.
चीनी जो है ये 40-45 रुपया किलो पाती हूँ, और चावल जो है ये 23 रुपया चावल लाती हूँ, जो एकदम बेकार होता है, जो सबसे सस्ता वाला देखती हूँ. और गेहूं का आटा 95 रुपया बोरी लाती हूँ, 195 रुपया.
The story of Sunita Dubey and her family speaks of the importance of subsidies on one hand and also of persisting anomalies in the system on the other. Around the world, many governments provide some form of support to poor and needy sections of society from the public exchequer. In India, the Union government provides subsidized food, fuel and fertilizers to economically weaker sections. In some cases, this assistance comes to the intended beneficiary directly. In others, it is given through companies and producers who keep prices in check for the eligible sections. Despite widespread criticism of India's rising subsidy bill, experts say many of these entitlements for the economically weak are a crucial way forward.
Subsidy on food as well as fertilizer in a country like India is indispensable. You can't do away with it because it's an essential input, and without it, you can't even harness the true potential of the high-yielding varieties.
The development and growth model which has been pursued by nearly all countries is energy intensive, and consumption of energy is directly proportional to the GDP.
In the case of food subsidies, the government runs massive public distribution programs through more than 5 lakh fair price shops, providing rationed quantities of staple food grain and fuel to the needy. For fuel, the government provides funds to public sector oil marketing companies to enable them to supply domestic cooking gas LPG as well as diesel and kerosene at lower than cost prices. In addition, fertilizer to the farmer at subsidized rates plays a key role in agriculture. As per the interim budget, the Union government's subsidy bill will be close to 2.5 lakh crore rupees. Of this, 65,000 crores has been provided for fuel subsidy and 115,000 crore has been allocated for food subsidy. Fertilizer subsidy for farmers are estimated above 50,000 crore rupees. The government's food subsidy bill has risen sharply over the last few years, from 25,000 crore in 2003-2004 to 64,000 crore in 2010. In 2013-14, the food subsidy bill was around 90,000 crore rupees. With the implementation of the Food Security Law in 2014-15, it is expected to rise to 1,15,000 crore rupees.
Let's take a look at the shape that these government subsidies have taken over the years, with some of them having a more decisive impact than others.
In 2013, Parliament enacted a law providing highly subsidized food grain to 67% of the country's population, the Food Security Act. The Act aims to cover 75% of India's rural households and half the urban ones. 1.15 lakh crore rupees have been set aside in the interim budget to implement the law. Under this law, each beneficiary is entitled to 5 kilograms of food grain at highly subsidized price of 3 rupees per kilo of rice, 2 rupees per kilo of wheat and coarse grains at 1 rupee per kilo. 1 crore families under the extremely poor category will continue to get 35 kilograms of food grain under Antyodaya Anna Yojana or AAY scheme, irrespective of the family size. Food subsidy provided to economically weaker sections works as a three-way system. The government provides subsidy to farmers on fertilizers to increase farm output of staple crops. The government also ensures that farmers get a good price for their produce, laying down a minimum support price for wheat, rice and sugarcane. The idea is to ensure remunerative prices to farmers to encourage them to increase farm yield that is considered vital for food security. The third step is distribution of staple food grain and kerosene through the public distribution network of over 5 lakh fair price shops around the country. In this chain, fertilizer subsidies have played a critical role. Over the decades, rising production costs of urea and continuous effort to keep fertilizer prices low has meant a rise in the subsidy bill. India produces 22 million tons of urea and imports 8 million tons to meet the shortfall. This graph reflects the rising fertilizer subsidy bill, from the 260 crore mark in 1977 to nearly 5,800 crores by 1993. By 2013, the subsidy on fertilizers is nearly 133 times that in 1957. The farmer currently buys urea at a subsidized price of nearly 5,000 rupees a ton. Agriculture activists say the subsidy has to continue to be able to deal with soaring input costs.
Imbalanced use of fertilizer, this is not because of subsidy, but this is because of some inherent flaw in our fertilizer policy.
Experts vouch for the fact that though misuse of subsidies in fertilizers is relatively small, such instances do occur.
चाहे उद्योगपति को सीधे ने वो गलत डाटा दे करके ज़्यादा सब्सिडी लेता, सीधी दी जाती थी तब भी उसका मिसयूज होता था, बड़ा किसान उसे ले लेता था या मार्केट में ब्लैक में बिक जाता था.
Beyond fertilizers to fuel, the centre provides subsidy to oil marketing companies on sale of diesel and domestic cooking gas and also on sale of kerosene. The fourth major commodity, petrol, is technically out of the ambit of subsidies. Subsidies given to the sector as a whole and related tax structure and pricing models have long dominated the economic debate in the country. Despite no direct power subsidies to the consumer from the centre, two crucial support systems are provided to the states.
central government subsidizes the capital construction cost of rural electrification program, particularly under the Rajiv Gandhi Gramin Vidyutikaran Yojana. Here the central subsidy is 90% of the capital cost. This is a huge subsidy.
Also, the centre provides support for restructuring of state electricity boards. The NDA government approved a bailout package of nearly 50,000 crore for state electricity boards in 2003. In 2013, the UPA offered a restructuring package to state electricity boards after accumulated debts crossed 2 lakh crore rupees. Once again, this comes with warnings of prevalent cross-subsidies and lack of long-pending reforms dragging down economic growth.
It's higher than the average cost of service. Industrial consumers also pay much higher than the actual cost of service, whereas domestic consumers pay less than the actual cost of service, and agriculture consumers may pay much less or may not pay at all.
It is clear that subsidies play a crucial role in keeping the country's poor and needy afloat. But there is another aspect, the downside, which we will analyze after this break. Welcome back. There is a growing lobby of detractors of the idea of continued subsidies and the huge drag they impose on the economy and fiscal health, made worse by diversion, poor targeting and waste.
The sheer scale of India's Food Guarantee Act led several countries to seek explanations on stocking requirements and subsidies to Indian farmers. At the WTO ministerial meet in Bali, Indonesia in December 2013, countries including the United States and Pakistan expressed concern on India's food security program, leading to hardening of food prices in other countries. At home, opposition parties and activists criticized the law for lack of universal coverage. This coupled with fears of even greater and more rampant diversion and leakages from the public distribution system.
But about 5 years ago, half the people below the poverty line did not have a targeted PDS card, so that we are not able to easily identify the poor. So my suggestion has been that don't try to identify the poor. It is a lot easier to identify the rich. So identify the relatively rich and exclude them. So you can easily exclude 30-35% of the people.
But even beyond creating these subsidies for the benefit of economically weaker sections is a crucial need to ensure reach and correct targeting. Sunita Dubey's is a classic case of those who need the subsidies most being left out in the cold.
All estimates show that nearly 40% of it is diverted to others. Whatever is actually being distributed through the public distribution system, even that doesn't reach the genuine poor.
Linkage to Aadhaar-enabled bank accounts for LPG connections was seen as one way to eliminate fake or dual connections, but it delayed processes and many consumers had to pay up. India's mammoth public distribution network is riddled with corruption and inefficiency. Estimates of leakage vary from committee to committee. Some estimates suggest up to 40% leakage. In order to plug the diversion, the centre has encouraged states to use latest technology and biometric identification of beneficiaries.
More than 30% of the farmers, the people, the BPL people are not included. They are all excluded. They are the most needy people, but because of various reasons, they don't have ration card, they don't have any address proof, so they can't access this. This is one. Secondly, there are also people who are included, those who should not have been included. They are basically rich, much above the poverty line, but they have some kind of not only single card, sometimes they have multiple ration cards in their names. They can manipulate and then they get these things.
On the petroleum subsidy front, a far larger issue is under-recoveries that threaten the fiscal deficit in a much bigger way. On sale of every cylinder of LPG gas, public sector oil marketing companies lose over 600 rupees. On diesel, there's an under-recovery of more than 8 rupees per litre, and on kerosene, it's above 36 rupees per litre. The interim budget for 2014-15 pegs the fuel subsidy bill at 65,000 crore rupees. In fact, subsidies extend much further as state-owned refining and marketing companies bear a part of the subsidy burden.
What government is giving and what government is directing the petroleum companies to offer taken together runs into 150,000 crores, 1,50,000 crores or even more in a year, and that is a very significant amount. Earlier the government was not counting it in the fiscal deficit, then subsequently government was forced to count it in the fiscal deficit. So, government does financial jugglery. It does not count the subsidy which the ONGC and Oil India are giving, and then some part of subsidy rolls over into the next year. Now, these are all financial juggleries which the analysts are able to see.
For the first 9 months of this fiscal, under-recoveries of public sector oil companies are estimated to be above 1 lakh crore rupees. As per data released in March 2014, PSU oil companies were losing over 400 crore rupees per day on sale of subsidized diesel, LPG and kerosene. Combined under-recoveries of public sector oil companies in the last 3 fiscals stand at more than 3,77,000 crore rupees. In the first 9 months of this fiscal, oil companies have lost over 47,000 crore rupees on sale of subsidized diesel, over 30,000 crore on sale of domestic LPG and over 22,000 crore rupees on sale of subsidized kerosene. The policy has serious economic implications, right up to slowing down GDP growth.
Somebody has to finance these under-recoveries. Eventually what happens is the government bears the burden. The government bears the burden, fiscal deficit goes up, money supply goes up, inflation goes up, the Reserve Bank raises interest rate goes up, investment goes down, and the economic growth goes down.
Last year 2012-13, I am told ONGC had to give nearly 45,000 crores of rupees to meet the subsidy burden, and now this naturally impacts ONGC's ability to make investment in India and more importantly outside India.
The NDA government had dismantled the administered price mechanism. However, increase in global crude prices forced the UPA to reintroduce the subsidy-driven approach.
NDA government had actually liberalized the prices, and for some 1.5 years the liberal price regimes prevailed. But then suddenly when the prices went up, the government started again reintroduce the APM mechanism, administered price mechanism. So I think largely it has really flowered. This APM has been followed by the UPA, but the UPA government has now, I would say, taken the decision that they want to get rid of it. But
even a minor rise in global crude oil prices means a massive rise in the crude import bill, creating sustained pressure on the current account deficit and the currency.
If we are not in a position to control inflation, if we do not have other exports to take care of large imports of crude oil and gas, then we should not follow a policy in which our consumption keeps on increasing and we are totally dependent on the external resources to meet the requirement of energy for us.
Extend that to LPG cylinders and the political pressures. The centre was almost forced to reverse its decision to cap the number of subsidized cylinders to 9 per household in a year, raising the limit per year per household back to 12. The huge fiscal burden due to under-recoveries on sale of diesel has divided policymakers and attracted huge criticism. The transportation sector accounts for nearly 25% of total diesel consumption in the country. and diesel is fast emerging as the fuel of choice for luxury cars and SUVs.
The difference between petrol price and diesel price and the implicit subsidy was giving a subsidy of ₹50,000 per year to an SUV owner. Now, a man who is spending 22 lakhs for buying an SUV, why does he need a ₹50,000 additional subsidy from the government?
Experts also disapprove of subsidized prices as a tool to control inflation. Misuse of subsidies, their being misappropriated by the already well-off, is a major anomaly. This extends to frauds and malpractice, like kerosene purchased at subsidized rates being mixed with pure diesel and sold at a higher cost. There's a rising feeling of India's massive subsidy program having resulted in equally massive leakage as benefits are not reaching intended beneficiaries.
There is no ideal level of subsidy. Subsidy should not be given. Subsidy should be given in the form of targeted subsidy to the poor in the form of cash transfer.
It was for just this that Aadhaar-enabled direct transfer of benefit was dubbed a game changer. Government companies, banks and petroleum marketing companies have also started using an Aadhaar-enabled platform for transfer of cash subsidies to beneficiaries' account on a pilot basis. But difficulties in implementation still stand in the way, with complications at every step.
Our intentions may be good, our programs may be good, then it boils down to implementation at the ground level. So everything is, interlinked and interconnected. So the first thing the government has to be clear about is whether it has the intention to go ahead, take challenging decisions and, be clear as far as its policy framework is concerned.
The call for a paradigm change in the country's subsidy policies grows shriller.
It's a complex issue and one has to have a delicate balance of subsidizing and at the same time creating an environment where energy efficiency improves, energy intensity decreases, and we improve our fiscal management, we improve our exports to be able to take care of imports, we improve our fiscal resources through taxes and others so that the fiscal deficit can decrease.
The subsidy question is at the center of perhaps the biggest planning debate in India. Even the fiercest critic will admit that India must continue its subsidy program to provide relief to its poor. On the other hand, there is a clear need to cut spending to ensure better health of economy. I am Krishnanand Tripathi for Rajya Sabha Television.